The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go.
Hello, and welcome to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. I'm your host, Ram Tuli. This podcast is about the joy of guitar. That includes buying guitars, selling guitars, collecting guitars. We're talking vintage guitars, new guitars, used guitars, pre-war, flat tops, electric Spanish arch tops, custom shop guitars, limited edition guitars, basses, amps, effect pedals, lap steels, mandolins, banjo. If it has strings, we're going to talk about it. I spent most of my life studying the vintage guitar market. It's truly something I love and I'm passionate about. I can talk guitars all day, and I'm going to. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another thrilling and exciting edition of Buy That Guitar. Today, I'm with Forgey of Elderly Instruments. He's a prestigious member of my advisory committee on the VG price guide. We talk often, mostly about guitars, but we talk about other stuff too, right, Frog?
That's true.
That's right. I think you take my daily...
Baseball, dogs, hockey.
Yeah. You take my little quiz every morning.
Yeah.
So that's good. Today, I think I sent you an outline a little bit we want to talk about, but one of the things I want to really talk about is the market today, like, what's going on right now.
Right.
But before we get there, when did you start playing guitar?
10th grade, so what's that, 1969?
So you've been playing most of your life.
A long time, yeah.
And you're currently the lead guitarist and vocalist for Frog and the Beeftones, a high energy blues band.
And Gina Garner and the All Night Long Band, and Icy Dicey, and half a dozen other mid-Michigan bands.
You're probably one of the busiest guitarists in Michigan, right?
Well, I try and stay busy. It keeps me out of trouble. What am I going to tell you?
You're in East Lansing, right?
Well, we're in Lansing, but East Lansing and Lansing, that's like Minneapolis, St. Paul. You cross the street and you're in the other city.
Now, I'm curious, when you drive into East Lansing, is there a sign that says now entering the birthplace of the world famous Howlin' Ram Tuli?
I can't say that I've ever seen that sign, but it could be there, and I've just missed it.
Yeah. As you know, I'm a native of East Lansing. That's one of my great claims to fame.
There you go.
I don't know anything about East Lansing.
Well, Michigan State's there. Every fall, 40,000 kids descend upon East Lansing, Michigan.
All I know, I was born in a place called John Sparrow Hospital, and my parents lived in the Cherry Street apartments at Michigan State.
There you go. Yeah, well, the place I'm playing tonight is about 100 yards from Sparrow Hospital.
There you go. Maybe there's a sign there.
I could go out and check. I'll be happy to do that.
Whenever I'm going to do something with a podcast, they're always friends of mine, but I always go and look and watch stuff. And I'm watching your videos. You got lots of videos of you playing, and you're a great player. There's a video of you playing, and you have like 100 drummers. What was that about?
You get that. There's a guy here in town, the guy that I'm doing a job with tonight, Mike Daniels. He does every spring. He does the Bash Battalion, and they put at one of the local auditoriums here in town on stage. They put you're right. I think at one of the years he had like 50 drummers up there.
Wow.
I think this last year he only had like 32.
Wow.
But they do a bunch of stuff that he's written just for drummers, and then they start marching out all the local players in town. And there's myself, a bunch of guys. Maybe one guy you guys might know is Hank Horton. He plays bass for Skunk Baxter, and Hank is always involved. And there's, we just have a big time, and it draws. Everybody knows about it. So when we do this, it's a packed house.
That's like one of the first YouTube videos that come up, and I was like, I know how thrilling it is to play with two drummers.
Yep.
I can't imagine playing with more than two.
Oh no, it's fun. It's a laugh riot. It really is. And these guys are all good. No slouches. These guys are all real good.
Yeah, take that, Allman Brothers.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's talk about Elderly Instruments. Now, you guys have been on VG Magazine. You've been around since the 70s, right? It is a musical instrument place.
Yeah, Stan started the store in the basement of a building in East Lansing across the street from MSU. And he had just a corner of the basement, but every time one of the other people who were renting space in that basement would vacate, he would take over their spot until he finally had the entire lower end of that building.
Mm-hmm.
And then in '83, he grabbed the building that is now the showroom, which was an old Oddfellows Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got that building, it was like, he figured he had enough space for the rest of our time on planet Earth. Well, by the early 90s, I'm the sales floor manager, and I'm walking into his office going, where are we going to put all this stuff? And fortunately, the people who owned the building next to ours decided they were going out of business and they wanted to sell their building. So we took that over, and now, it's 30,000 plus of store. The sales floor is probably, I'm a bad judge, but I would say the sales floor is maybe 8,000 feet. Because it's just the first floor of this Oddfellows Hall.
Do you sell mainly new instruments, or do you sell half and half between used and?
Well, it varies, because some years, certainly in 2020, new instrument sales were big because people were sitting at home and had nothing to do, and
right.
And we all know, anybody that pays attention to market knows that there was a big bump in new sales that year. But for the most part now, and we're talking 2025, used instruments are a hefty part of our sales.
Do you guys have a lot of vintage inventory, or is it just used? Like, if somebody in the Midwest, you're one of the go-to places for vintage instruments.
Well, we like to think so. Yeah, that's for sure.
I get a lot of info from you guys. You guys send me a little thing, tells you what you sold.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are you're up there with most of the other Midwest places. When I tell people, look in the Midwest, man.
Well, it's not just flyover country anymore.
Yep. Good stuff.
Is that a TV commercial? I don't know. Anyway.
Oh, I just sent out a thing this week. I sent out my July questionnaire, and I ask everybody, give me 5, 6, 10 guitars you sold, and then give me your opinion on the market, like what's going on with the market. And right now, man, I got more varied responses. Half people, oh, it's great. The other half, oh, whoa, no. So, like, I trust you. You're one of the good guys.
Well, I think, it's not that, there's certainly a market, but the market, let's not mince words, but the market is getting flooded. That's for sure. And a lot of that has to do with demographics of players. There's certainly a lot of players
mm-hmm.
in demographically 50 to 80 years old that have an awful lot of instruments, and now they're 50 to 80 years old, and they're going, what am I going to do with all this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And as short a time ago as 5 years ago, if I saw a guy with a bunch of instruments coming in, I might see that guy 2 or 3 times a month. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that guy 3 times today. Yeah, it's just, we see guys with collections coming in here 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. Most of these guys are not walking in with 50s Les Pauls.
Right.
They're walking in with workman's pieces, Martins, workhorse Fender guitars, workhorse Gibson guitars, and they're like a lot of other people, their wife or kids wouldn't know what to do with them. And,
mm-hmm.
and they're like, well, I'm going to get off of them now while I'm still alive.
And you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and I remember you were telling me that.
Yeah, it's tough. Personally, when I turned 60, I offed a bunch of guitars, and a buddy of mine retired, spent his first 2 years of retirement in front of a computer screen, found all sorts of left-handed guitars for me, and I bought back pretty near what I sold off.
I found that the high-end stuff is staying high.
Yeah, especially the acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
Especially the acoustic stuff.
That stuff that near mint or uncirculated, as they call in the grading world.
That's a good line. That's a good word.
Yeah, and that stuff is staying high. There is a price for a foam green Stratocaster that's in good shape, and people are going to pay that price. Now, that's not true. That's not the sell-through price now for Players Vintage is coming down.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it waning, but it's definitely taken a hit.
It's safe to say that we did hit the peak as we kept waiting and waiting and waiting.
Well, we have hit a peak. Remember we hit a peak in 2008 too.
Right.
And then when the real estate market took a nosedive, the guitar market took a nosedive right along with it.
Right. The one thing that I always say that today doesn't look like 2008, only because the over speculation that pumped up to values, the values of guitars in 2008 is not like today where everything was undervalued.
I would agree with that, yes.
For such a long time. And there's no doubt that the last 5 years, we've seen more growth than ever before.
Oh, yeah.
I like looking at that. So this year, I'm doing the guide. I'm getting it ready for next year, and I'm basically going to be acknowledging the fact that we have hit the top, and player grade stuff, or what I call the low number,
Right.
It has gone down for many of these things. But that high number has stayed. There used to be about a 20 to 30% difference between
range,
high and low.
Now the range can be much wider. The pendulum can swing a lot wider.
And if it's an acoustic guitar, especially if it's like one of the specialty ones that were made in the custom shops, with premium woods and stuff, that can be 100% swing between low and high. The high number could be double. One of the things we're going to talk about is that there's a lot of interest out there. Everybody wants to know about flat tops. Everybody loves flat tops. And you guys, Elderly's, to me, is kind of like a great place to, if you're going into look and play different flat tops. You have a huge inventory of them, but you also have a huge inventory of what we call the premium boutique segment, right?
True.
So people often ask me, like, why, like, do I have to get a Martin? Do I have to get a Gibson if I want a good acoustic guitar?
Well, and a lot of these boutique makers are around because 25 years ago, all of a sudden, well, longer than that, really early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, there were people that decided it's okay to have an instrument that doesn't sound like a Martin, or doesn't try and sound like a Martin,
or doesn't say Martin on the headstock. Right.
But I mean, a good example is Loudon, who, he's done well because there are people that want a guitar that doesn't sound like a D28.
I think I sent you this, the estimated annual acoustic guitar production by brand this year.
Right.
Right. And it blows your mind that Yamaha and Fender so dominate the acoustic guitar market.
Yeah, but there's, there are a lot of people that, don't have $1,000 to spend on a guitar.
Right. I couldn't believe that Fender was so dominant for acoustic guitar, because I'm a vintage Fender guy. I'd never even think of Fender when I think of acoustic guitars.
Well, no, most people don't, but there's also aesthetics involved too. I mean, a guy comes in, he doesn't know a lot about guitars. Show me the inexpensive guitars you have, and you walk him over to a couple of racks of guitars, and he sees a guitar that says Fender on it. And he knows that name, and that's some of the aesthetics of the newer Fender guitars are pretty psychedelic, and that's appealing to some people.
Yeah, I was like floored when I saw that Fender was selling so many guitars, and then I also found out that the dealers are required to take 95 acoustics a year.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to say there's a high failure rate of these, but I mean, between you and me, it's not like you're buying a Taylor, right?
Well, or a Martin, or several other brands that that are higher end. Right. I mean, I should say, because it's always at the top of my head, it's always amazing to me how consistent Martin is for the number of the instruments that they put out.
Right.
Their consistency rate is just, and then somebody says, what's the step up? And of course, then we talk about Collings, but I just did a Johnny Cochran sidebar on there. Sorry about that.
No, we're going to get there. We're certainly getting there. Well, one of the things I was going to say is, so like Yamaha, I mean, they may make close to 150,000 acoustic guitars per year.
Oh, yeah.
Fender makes about 120,000.
And remember that the United States is only just, I don't know, what are we? Maybe 40% of that.
Right. And I think more of the population plays in Japan than they do in America.
Yeah.
So, but Martin, they make 100,000 guitars a year, but most of that, of course, is not the high end. That's low end. Right. Taylor makes about 80,000 a year. Gibson makes about 50,000 a year. Takamine makes about the same as Gibson.
Right.
But then we get to the Collings and the Larrivee, Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Those guys make a fraction. I mean, they kind of make the numbers. They make numbers.
Right. Larrivee more than the others, but definitely. Right. Larrivee's numbers don't, they pale compared to some of the other.
Right.
Numbers.
So you're talking thousands, 600, 500. First, we're going to talk about the premium boutique segment. Right. If you want a $300 guitar, well, you're not looking here, right?
Right.
If you are looking for something and you don't want to pay, for a D28 or a Gibson SJ200, there's a lot of stuff out there that's going to be made from quality.
There's a lot of, I mean, one of the brands that comes to mind is Eastman. I mean, they build great guitars,
right? And
they won't break the bank,
right? And those are probably Eastman. There's also a advertiser, Blue Ridge Guitars. They're an advertiser in Vintage Guitar Magazine.
Yep, Blue Ridge. Their instruments are fairly consistent. We don't run into many problems with them, and the necks aren't falling off, and it's they sound good, and they generally, when we get them, they're set up pretty well, which is another feather in your cap.
So let's go into Bourgeois.
And Dana's been around longer than most of these guys.
Right. And so, these are made in Maine, Lewiston, Maine. And he makes, what do you say, about 300 to 500 instruments a year, maybe?
That sounds about right.
Like when I go to the guitar show, you'll see a Bourgeois sitting there.
Well, and he's got a lot of heavy hitters that play his guitars.
Yep.
And I don't mean just to advertise them. I mean, they play them.
Right.
You go out and see Vince Gill, a lot of times he's playing a Bourgeois guitar.
These are guitars that are celebrated for exceptional tone playability, and they use premium tone woods. You can get Brazilian rosewood, Adirondack spruce, mahogany. You can get these woods.
Dana's a good man. He really, he's got a good product, and he surrounded himself with a bunch of real good people, and hats off to him for that.
They did introduce this Touch Tone series, which is a Chinese made.
Right.
Do you think that's going to be diluting the brand at all?
Depends on who the dealer you're dealing. No, I don't think it is. You have to, as a dealer, you go, okay, here's this builder's brand, and then here's his import line, and for some people, that's a good way for them to go. My friend has a Bourgeois. He really likes it. It's a great guitar. I can't afford a guitar like my friends, but I can buy their import line. Mm-hmm. So, there's a reality.
I have a 3000 guitar index. I actually track one Bourgeois. It's a JOM Brazilian, 1993. For some reason I picked a 1993 JOM. And this guitar you can get used around 6 to 7-ish, right? Mm-hmm. Just to let you know, as far as an investment, these guitars return about 4 to 5% a year. So you're never going to lose money on one of these high-end Bourgeois guitars, especially if they got Brazilian.
Yep.
Anything
with Brazilian.
Can you tell people why it matters that you have Brazilian rosewood fingerboards?
Well, it's certainly a tone factor. Does everybody hear it? They don't. That's just like Joe Smith says, I'm going to play a bar tonight, and I've got a Manchester amp and I've got a PV amp. Which one am I going to take? Doesn't matter. Nobody in the second row is going to tell the difference. Right. I'm going to tell the difference. So it's the player's thing. But, Brazilian rosewood and you can't get it anymore, or it's hard to get. Which is why a lot of the builders, Martin just has pretty much said, nope, no more. Just not going to do it anymore.
And that's why when we talk about vintage guitars, you look for anything made, we might get to the Guilds and the other ones. They did use Brazilian rosewood.
Guild used Brazilian rosewood.
Epiphone used it. Everybody used it. You can get that, and you might have to pay more from a vintage standpoint, but I think that's money well spent, because you'll never lose your money on that. I personally love the look of Brazilian rosewood. I like the dark. Can I tell the difference when I'm playing? Probably not. Mm-hmm. I know it feels a little differently, but I do know that, you feel like you're kind of 10 feet tall when you got a Brazilian rosewood. Nobody else may know, but
Right.
So anyway, this Bourgeois, like I'm saying, there's an heirloom series, there's a legacy series, $10,000, right? Is that about what you're going to pay for one? Those are great guitars, or great age tone series, also custom series. You'll spend above $5,000 for these, but they are definitely something to consider if you're looking for
dandy guitars.
Yep. If you're looking for something that's premium and that's just
they have a voice. They especially some of his specialty guitars, Country Boys. They've got a particular tone.
Right. Now let's move to Collings. I know that Collings makes probably twice as many guitars as Bourgeois does. Collings is a Austin, Texas.
Again, just super consistent.
Right.
Have you ever played a bad Collings?
No, never.
I've been working in this store for pretty near 40 years, and I've never played a bad Collings.
Exceptional tone, playability.
I played used ones that came in that, hey, this needs to be set up. Mm-hmm. But it still sounded great.
It's important to point out that they don't make a price point guitar, right?
No.
They make a guitar that is flawless fit and finish. Isn't that their thing? Yep. Flawless fit and finish. They're built to age gracefully, with many players noting improvement over time. So it's like, that is why you'd buy a pre-war guitar, because you notice that thing ages gracefully, has aged gracefully. And I had a friend who had a Collings, and I played his guitar, and I really couldn't have blown away by the craftsmanship and the way that thing sounded.
Yep. They know what they're doing down in Texas.
Yep. And so they have an OM series, which I think are the OM2H. Those are about $4,000 or $5,000.
Yep.
They got Parlor series. They pretty much mirror the Martin kind of nomenclature.
Right.
But they make one hell of a 335, don't they?
All his electric guitars are tremendous.
And I don't think people know about that.
That was,
I don't think people know about that.
When Bill Collings was alive, he was enamored with old Gibsons, and I'm going to build a better guitar. And I don't know that he built a better one, but he sure as hell built a nice one. Mm-hmm. And Their hollow body knockoffs are great. Their solid bodies are really, really nice guitars. Big necks usually have big necks, but they are just dandy guitars.
Now, you can actually get something made out of Adirondack spruce, can't you?
Yeah.
They can't cut a tree down, but they can harvest a tree that's fallen.
Right.
You can still get, I think, Bourgeois, Collings, maybe Larrivee also. I've heard that the wood prices now are going through the roof, though.
Yep.
And so
that's what my guys in the shop are telling me.
So yeah, so nowadays it's going to be, you're going to pay a lot more for something new that takes you about 6 months. Right now, Collings used guitars are red hot.
Yep. No, they don't. A used Collings guitar does not last long on our
Right.
wall at all. You know, I mean, yeah, 30 days max. And most of them don't last that long.
Mhm.
You know, we put them out and 8-10 days later, they're gone.
I track 2 Collings in my 3000 guitar index. One is the D2H Brazilian from 1994.
Mm-hmm.
That's about a $7,000, $8,000 guitar.
Yeah, I was going to say at least that much.
And that thing, you get about a 2 to 3% return on that. You're not going to lose money on that one as well.
No.
No. And then the SJ, I also put in a 1992 SJ in there, and it's just I know people love that's about a $4,000 or $5,000 guitar. That one, it's about the same, but 3 to 4% return. So you're not losing money. You're holding your investment there.
Right.
And that to me is just another one. Now let's talk about Larrivee.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Toronto, Canada, right?
Yeah, they're Western Canada.
Oh, Western Canada. So they make
Yeah.
they make fewer guitars than I believe Bourgeois.
No, I think they probably make more guitars than Collings does.
Oh, you think? I didn't know that. Oh, they started.
Yeah, I think so.
Did they just open a new factory? Is that what happened?
They have a factory in the United States. They've always, for many years have had a factory in the United States, but now most of their guitars are built here.
Right, they're building in Oxford. I just saw that.
Yeah.
In 2013, they opened Oxnard, California.
Yeah.
So how do you compare the Larrivee to the Collings?
That, I think they build a good product. They do some interesting things. Some of their smaller body guitars are neat. I guess that's the word I'm going to use. I hate to sound like Dobie Gillis, but they're neat.
And these are about $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
They make lower end guitars also.
Mm-hmm.
So their line is spread out more. And we've had the Larrivee guitars that I've really liked that I've seen. They make some jumbos that are pretty nice, and their whole line is again good ideas, well built.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to put them in the same class with Collings? I don't think I would do that, but I think that they're a well built guitar, and nobody should shy away from a Larrivee.
Right.
They're well built, nice, and the quality's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I track one in my 3000 guitar index. It's the D70, 1992 D70, and that thing actually doubled in price in the last 5 years. 1992.
Yeah, I would believe that.
So that doubled in price. So it has a pretty high annual return, about 5 to 6%. But that's only because they were so cheap 5-10 years ago.
Right.
Now you're paying almost $3,500 for that D70, which is I think I just picked that one just because I found sales data for it.
Well, and that's, for lack of a better term, it's on the upper end of the food chain.
Right.
And you can still find one for $3,000.
Okay. Around
there, but most of them are more than that.
Mm-hmm. So if you're out there and you see a D70 and you see it for $3,000, I'd get it. Like I say,
that's a good buy.
That thing doubled in price in 5 years.
Yeah,
so
that's a good buy.
Let's move to now. Santa Cruz is the one, right? Santa Cruz. When I talk to people about boutique, high-end boutique, Santa Cruz is always at the high end of that list, right?
Mm-hmm. I think they have a good product.
I guess it was founded by Richard Hoover in 1976 in Santa Cruz.
Yep, and he's still there.
He's still there, and they made violins, I think, and then steel string stuff. But they produce about 400 to 700 guitars a year. Mm-hmm. Quality over quantity for sure. These are guys that are basically making numbers like they made in Martin in the pre-war years. They're basically making 300 to 400 to 600 a year. But they're really into the tone woods, right? They really experiment.
They get some fairly exotic wood.
Yeah,
and their perceived value in the market has gone up, I think, considerably in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes. In fact, out of all the guitars I've talked about so far, they have the highest return. I track 2 Santa Cruzes.
Is that right?
Yeah, I have. I track 2 Santa Cruzes in my 3000 guitar index. One is the OM, a 1987 OM. Mm-hmm. That's about a $7,000 to $8,000 guitar. That thing it goes up about 6% a year.
Right.
And then I also do the Tony Rice, of course, 76 Tony Rice. When most people think of Santa Cruz, they think of that Tony Rice model.
Right.
And that's about a $5,000, $6,000 guitar. That thing is a little over 5% a year also. That's kind of like a Martin. Yeah, it's a Martin kind of return.
It doesn't surprise me.
So I know people that absolutely love Santa Cruz acoustic guitars. And when they see them, they go crazy because they're hard to find, aren't they?
No, I think, all these guys that we've talked about so far, you're going to find champions. You're going to find guys that are like just rah, 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 and a lot of the people, if they own one Santa Cruz, they probably own two or three.
Right.
If they own one Collings guitar, they probably own two or three. When Collings came out with their electric guitars, there were a lot of acoustic guitar guys that would have never bought an electric guitar, except Collins started building electric guitars, so they bought
Okay, so you know what? I got to try
guitar.
this. Yeah. So that's it. So now I'm going to move on to Taylor, which I love Taylor.
Well, we're here and we're not the only shop that, Taylor, that's church guy guitars.
Yep.
The church guys all like the Taylor because it comes with a pickup. Most of them have a cutaway G, and it almost plays like that SG that I played when I was a teenager.
Right. And I have a lot of Martins and stuff, but when I record, I have a Taylor 414 CE. I bought it in 2012.
Right.
And I have to admit, that's like one of my best sounding acoustic guitars of all time.
Well, and engineers like it because they record good.
Right. And I think that's kind of what destroyed the Ovation, right? The Taylor Electronics kind of.
Well, it definitely certainly had an effect. That's for sure. And Taylor's, they're very consistent, rarely have problems. They come in, usually they're set up pretty well, and they know what they're doing. And they had a vision. They were definitely going after the guy that, and I'm going to beat this one to like a dead horse, I guess. When I first started working here in the mid-'80s, you had a lot of guys, 30 to 50, who they played electric guitar when they were young. Now they're older. They got money. I want a nice guitar. I want a nice acoustic guitar. I'm not going to buy the $300 guitar. I want a nice acoustic guitar. They walk in here, they play a Martin. God, this sounds good, but it doesn't play anything like my SG. Pick up the Taylor. Wow, this plays like my SG. Okay, I'm going to buy this one.
I think I told this story, but I don't know if I told it on these podcasts or I just told it to somebody on the phone. About 2012, I needed an acoustic guitar because my band, I just needed an acoustic recording guitar.
Right.
So I went in and my intention was to buy the D28, right? Just go to Guitar Center and just buy whatever the D28 off the wall or the D18. I was going to try them both.
Right on.
And I did, and they were both great guitars. And then I spotted this 414 CE, and I'm like, maybe I should try that. And I think what I paid for it in 2012 is what it's worth today. But man, that's my go-to guitar. That's the one that's sitting by my couch when I'm listening to records. And I grab a guitar, it's that Taylor.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. But, and now, they've got that studio series of guitars, which are a little less expensive. Still very nice.
Now, the 800 series, do you think those are worth the money? $3 to $4 grand, $5 grand?
Some of them are, some of them aren't.
If somebody came in wanting to pay $5,000, would you steer them to the Taylor or would you steer them toward Collings?
I would tell them that that's available. And the guy that's looking to spend that kind of cash, generally, if you were going to line up Taylor or Collings, a couple other things, Bourgeois, chances are, if they're an experienced acoustic guitar player, they're probably going to go more towards Collings or the Bourgeois, if they're going to spend that kind of money.
Right. But if they're coming in with $2,500.
Because with the Taylors, when you're talking about that kind of dough, you're looking at a lot of rock. And gee, if I want a lot of rock and I have that kind of money, I guess I'll buy a D45.
Right. I would say, like, if somebody comes in with $2,500, that 400 series is probably a perfect place to try them first. Say, let's try this one first.
New, yeah. Yeah.
But I love it. Do you guys sell a lot of used Taylor?
Yes.
And does people care about El Cajon, or do they really want the early stuff, or they want the newer stuff?
Oh, the lemon grow stuff has some kind of psychedelic appeal to some people. The one thing we'll talk about used Taylors is, I'm going to say this just because recently I've dealt with a couple of guitars with guys that bring earlier Taylors in that don't have pickups. Taylor guitars that don't have pickups are hard to sell.
Okay.
Or they're slow to sell. Let's not say hard to sell. Let's say slow to sell.
And do people care about the bracing? You know how they change their bracing every...
They went to that...
X bracing or whatever.
Yeah.
Mine has the V bracing, but I like it. I liked it.
It's a different sound. They're going from a low end. And V class, that's what they call it, V class.
Yeah, V class.
And I think we're going to know a lot more when these guitars are all 4, 5, 6 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, now let's talk about Epiphone guitars.
Okay. Workman's guitars. So these are guitars that are more expensive than Fenders and Yamahas for the most part, but much less expensive than American-built guitars.
Right. A lot of the early, like the 50s Epiphone guitars, they were built in Kalamazoo.
Oh, we're talking about older Epiphones.
Yeah.
Older Epiphones, there's some cool instruments. And then, of course, you get into the 60s, and the Epiphone acoustics just mirrored the Gibson acoustics.
Right. They were made the same place with the same people.
Same place.
Same materials,
same place,
techniques.
same guitar, just a different name on it.
They just slap a different logo on the thing.
Right.
But I wanted to go back to Taylor. I only track 2 Taylors in my 3000 guitar index. One's a 410, which is about $1,000. Inflation basically kills that one. The 800 series, you get about 2% maybe, if you're lucky, a year.
And the 800 series, that was the series that was supposed to mirror the Martins.
Right.
And you've got to like the way that guitar sounds because it's supposed to mirror a Martin, but it really doesn't.
Right. And like I said, I knew when I bought it over 15 years ago, I'd probably be worth what I paid for it, whereas if I bought the 18 or the D28, I would accrue a little bit of return for that.
For sure.
There was just a love at first play. If that makes any sense. Like I fell in love with that Taylor, and to this day, I probably put more man hours on that than I do my Martin, pre-war Martin.
Right on. Well, and it treats you right. And like I said, a lot of studio guys like the Taylors because they know what to expect.
Now, as far as the 50s and 60s Epiphones, last year was kind of like their good year. I found that last year they kind of finally came into people started to recognize, and that was only because flat tops in general became very expensive. There was like this big resurgence where Martins and Gibsons were kind of like, they had great last 2 years. So the Epiphones, like the FT30, 45, the Cortez, the Texan, they kind of fall a little bit.
Yeah, when we get a Cortez or a Caballero in, they generally sell fairly quickly and pretty much for the same money that the Gibson equivalent's going to sell for.
About 12, 15 to 18. Yeah.
Assuming it's in good shape. And, the Epiphone arch tops are a good deal.
Oh, yeah.
As far as what a used one sells for, unless the market goes, unless when you send this out and then everybody goes, I'm going to go out and buy me a Epiphone arch top.
The most expensive Epiphone flat top, of course, is the Texan, right?
Yep.
And you'd have to pay about $3,500 to up from there, right?
Yep.
But that's the guitar, right? That's the yesterday guitar. It's got a very you know it when you hear it.
True.
But I found like these don't really have great return. They may have gone up 50% in the last 5 years.
Right.
But over the long haul, they're 2 to 3%. You're not making D18 numbers on it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's not an exponential return.
Right. For $1,200 to $1,800, if you can find a Cortez or a Caballero or a
nice guitar,
and
as long as you're buying it from a reputable dealer and the bridge is okay, then you're swinging.
And the Epiphones that have Brazilian rosewood, they're $6,000, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I always tell people, these Epiphones they're fun if you find them.
Correct.
What about the Sheraton? What happened to that? You don't get any return. You actually lose money in the long run if you buy a Sheraton.
Well, not an older one. Certainly one of the newer ones. You're right.
I have a 58
Sheratons, Casinos, older ones. You do okay with them.
Okay.
You're not going to make a great deal of money on them if you're looking to buy to turn. No, you're not going to make a great deal of money on them. But there's you can still find them and they go for a fair amount of money.
Do you think the Rivieras are good also? 60.
I like Rivieras.
So
I like Rivieras. I like Riviera 12s. I think they're badass. I got to tell you what, those are nice guitars.
So look for them. Right? If you see them, look for them.
Yep.
And you could get those under $5 at least, right?
Yep.
And they're you get the same kind of return that you get on most of these acoustics from that era. And that's what you're looking to do. You're looking to play it and enjoy it for the rest of your life. So there you go.
Right.
That's
no doubt.
Now, what about Gallagher? You guys, it must be rare that you get the Gallaghers in.
They have a reputation to be inconsistent, and there's
about
truth to that. There's truth to that. How is that?
Okay. I've tracked one Gallagher, and that's the Doc Watson, the 74 Doc Watson, and that's about 4% a year, 2 to 4% a year.
If you can find a nice one, it's a nice guitar to own.
Is there anything to know about the Gallaghers? Just look for
just neck angles. Again, you can find a nice one, but they're kind of like Wawas. You might go through more than a couple before you're going to find one that you really like.
I know that they made some in red spruce.
Yep.
So I know people like to look for those. They're punchy, articulate, people say. The folk, I guess they're bluegrass, right? Bluegrass guys.
That's what they were sold as, yes.
Yeah.
Although the several people that I know that actually play those things out, you hit the nail on the head. They're folkies.
Okay.
And they're, they like the name and there's a certain headspace thing that, I own a Gallagher. Okay. That's great. If you like it, any guitar, and we should, encourage people to, any guitar, if you like it, great. That's tremendous. No matter what it says on the headstock. If you like it, that's tremendous.
It's handcrafted. So, and it's got a historical connection to folk and bluegrass. It's a nice, Tennessee. When you think of Tennessee, I think of Gallagher. Yep. I think of Gallagher. If I was sitting there, I'd be probably playing that. Now, what about grammar?
Of the manufacturers from 40, 50 years ago, I mean, that's pretty interesting. I mean, you got a guy who was kind of, I mean, he was a star on the Grand Ole Opry, and he thought he had a better idea, and he sold it to some people for a short time. When you saw pictures of country stars in the late 60s and the 70s, there's lots of pictures of Ernest Tubb playing a Greenwood guitar.
Very distinctive looking guitar for sure.
There, it's that headstock is something else.
Yep.
And but again,
it would come in handy in a bar fight.
You might go through a bunch before you found one you liked and found one that was in solid shape.
Right. He was basically just trying to blend the best of Martin and Gibson designs together. Right. And there are people that really like them. I follow in my 3000 guitar index. I only follow the G30, a 65 G30, and you get it for about $2,000. The same thing, it's about a 3% return. All these things just beat inflation, but
you're not going to make a great deal on them, but.
I know that the G10s would have Brazilian rosewood. You can get those for $2,000, $3,000.
Right. Not all of them solid Brazilian rosewood, though.
Yeah.
A lot of them are laminates.
Yeah. And then I know that people like them. They sound like J45s, D18s. They got a nice punch to them, full body tone. I don't know. I see them and I like them.
Yeah.
They're very unique.
Well, they're interesting. They really are.
Yeah. But again, we're talking about American-made guitars from the vintage guitar. That's one you could get for $2,000.
Right.
And you might. Right. It might be a winner.
And a lot of times less than that. So, yeah, for sure.
Yep. Now, Guild is big all of a sudden, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Guild's changed hands so many times that, and in each lineage, each manufacturer had their own idea about, I mean, Guild up until they started changing hands, it was, they were the folk guys loved those things. Even the big guitars, the folk guys loved those things.
And you were talking about the ones that are made in New Jersey.
They had a sound, to a lot of people it was a thud, but they had a sound. And for the most part built pretty well, I mean, yeah, they were built like a tank. A lot of guys would joke with, boy, if I'm in a bar fight, I hope I'm playing a Guild. And then when they started changing hands, everybody had a different idea. I mean, certainly when Fender took over, the one thing I'll say about the Fender built ones is that those are very consistent. They're very consistent. They're not what you'd consider even, when you bought like a D50 made by Fender. Sonically, it wasn't the same thing as your friend's 80s Guild D50.
Right.
Much more of a lighter sound and to some people more, and I would be one of them, a more pleasing sound.
Now the 50s, like a Navarre has a great return. Like the F50 from 57, that's about I got it at about $5,500, almost $6,000. But that thing gets about 5% a year return.
Yep.
That thing didn't quite double in value in the last 5 years, but it's gone up significantly in the last 5 years. The Bluegrass Special, the D50, of course, that's a huge. Everybody loves those early 60s.
And like I say, and that it stands out as far as from each owner of the business.
Right.
The D50 sonically has changed. Aesthetically, it looks the same, but sonically, I mean, old D50s tend to be pretty, low hovering cloud sound, and the newer ones are much lighter sounding.
Right. What about the Troubadours, the F20s? Those are cheaper.
Yep, they are.
Much cheaper. But they're pretty good. I think they get a good return.
Yep.
I know that Guild kind of came, especially the electrics, kind of like in the last couple of years, people started rediscovering the Starfires and that kind of stuff. And,
right.
And because it was a great guitar for much, much, much less. And when when Martin flat tops were skyrocketing, people kind of were looking at Guild's, big guitars, big giant guitars.
Sure, because it was a name that they knew.
Yep.
And how many pictures of John Denver do you need shoved in your face? And what did he play? He played Guilds all the time.
Yep. And they made a great 12-string, no doubt about that.
Well, that was his thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. Now, what do you think about Mossman?
Another, now that's not a lot of production. If you find one that's in good shape, they sound pretty good. It's a different sound. For lack of a better way of putting it, Mossmans don't sound the way you think they might when you're just looking at the guitar.
I was told that Mossmans were kind of like totally undervalued. People were didn't know much about them.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd say that. I think that with Mossman, what's the old adage? Beauty's in the eye of the beer holder. Uh, there are some Mossman guitars that I thought, boy, this is pretty nice, and there's some Mossman guitars that I played that I thought, okay, I guess I understand why somebody would like this. Unfortunately, most of them that we see have experienced too many Midwest winters.
Right.
And so they have problems.
The wheat field has been plowed over. The winter wheat has gone frosty.
Yeah.
I think when you think of a hand-built guitar, here's one that they made, 2 to 3 a day.
Yeah.
The very, very small production numbers. I just think they're very unique looking.
They are. They are. Well, again, I mean, that's the thing with the Grammars. They're, they're kind of a unique guitar.
Right. So I think we covered most of what we thought when we think of American-made vintage acoustic flat tops that are out there available. So you got somebody comes in your store and you talk to them and they want a vintage acoustic guitar and they have about $1,200. Where would you take them first? Like, what would you bring out first for him?
For a vintage guitar?
Yeah, he wants a vintage. He wants something that's
$1,200 price point.
Yeah, he's got $1,200 and he wants a vintage guitar.
If we had, this would be a little more than that, but I would send them. Maybe look at LG1s, LG2s.
Yeah.
LGOs if we've got one that's in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the LGOs that we get, and these days we sell to guys that we sell them as is, and it's a guy that wants to, considers himself, kind of knows what he's doing. I'm doing minor guitar repairs, not neck resets, but maybe a little fret work, a little bridge work, and so on and so forth. And they're using them for campfire guitars, but they want a cool campfire guitar.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want a Fender guitar. They want a cool guy.
Yeah.
Something that, this thing's 50 years old. This thing's as old as I am, and I'm playing at the campfire. Isn't this cool?
Yep, absolutely. Now, but again, like we talk about today's boutique high-end stuff, we just want to, I think the gist of what we're trying to tell people today is it doesn't have to say Martin or Gibson on the headstock.
No. And it doesn't have to sound like a Martin.
Yep.
And there's guys, again, and I'll use this analogy again, like loud killer guitars, and they don't sound anything like a Martin.
Right.
None of them do, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing like Irish music.
Mm-hmm.
The South Americans, they like that real bright, tinny stuff, small guitars.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Now, Elderly, you guys sell a lot of mandolins and banjos, right?
Yes.
I think I get most of my banjo and mandolin numbers from you when you guys sell them.
Right.
What is the banjo market like right now?
Well, the 5-string banjo market is good.
Is that because
4-string banjo market is flooded? It's flooded. And we're real lucky, here we've got a guy, Larry Scott White, he's here, and he knows as much about banjos as an awful lot of people. And of course, Stan, he was a banjo player. When Stan opened the store, Stan's a banjo player. So he imparted most of his knowledge to Larry, and Larry knows all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. I don't know I think I talked to somebody there when I was trying to do banjo numbers, just to get an understanding. And of course, I talked to George Groon, and it was just I think it was George who told me, or maybe it was maybe Stan. Somebody told me that Irish music was kind of keeping that plectrum or the banjo moving.
Right. That's what's keeping the 4-string stuff moving.
So that really was the Irish bands were using it, but nobody's buying the Granadas.
The guys with the straw hats are dying off fast.
Yeah, there's no more Granadas and All Americans and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Now, what about mandolins? I mean, there was a big time, like, I don't know, maybe
mandolins are still strong.
Still strong. People still
we sell a lot of mandolins and a lot of high-end mandolins.
What's your best-selling non-Gibson mandolin?
Oh, well, there's a good question. As far as used stuff goes, if we see Weber's, Northfields, and any of that, you get a Stiver in here, it doesn't last very long. Yeah, there's a lot. It kind of impresses me how many high-end mandolins we sell, and we certainly see a lot of F2s, F4s, F5s, F5s for what they go for, which is a lot of money these days. They don't last around here. They don't last very long around here.
So if you got an F5 in, like, let's say you got something from the 20s, would you just call somebody right away, or
Well, there are certainly we keep lists of people that are looking for things like that. Word gets around pretty quick. If you get an instrument like that, word gets around pretty quick that you've got it.
I was thinking it would either go right away or it would sit forever.
Yeah. Well, that's always been the joke. I mean, in all the time I've been doing this, how many times have I look at a guitar or a mandolin or a banjo and I go, like, boy, this will be gone in a hurry. And then the next Christmas I'm looking at it. Or I see something and go, nobody's ever going to buy this. And 2 or 3 days later, it's gone.
Right.
So I wish there was rocket science to this, but there isn't.
There isn't. There's no rhyme or reason. I think we've learned, if we've learned anything, it's that. So
there you go.
Did I leave out any, I just pulled these out just because I was just going through the guidebook.
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Did I get all that what you would have hanging on your wall? Is there anything I missed that somebody might find as a good Easter egg out there?
There's some real oddball stuff, like Wechters or oddball stuff. They're interesting, and if you can find one in good shape, they're nice guitars. Either the ones that he built, the ones that Abe built, and the ones that he imported. They're all nice.
Like we always talk about flat tops and arch tops. The market is completely different, isn't it?
What, for arch tops?
Yeah, arch tops and flat tops.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. You'll have 2 or 3 years in a row where every arch top that you see, if it's a quality arch top, it's gone in a hurry. And then there'll be 2 or 3 years that go by, and it's like, all of a sudden you've got 30, 40 arch tops in the world. Where are the buyers? So I don't know. Is it like, we joke about, I wish Slash had released a record so we could sell some Les Pauls. Is there like a jazz guy that sells a bunch of records and then suddenly we're selling arch tops again? I don't know. I don't think that's quite the case.
Yeah, a lot of the jazz guys are playing solid tops, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. Did you ever play one of those Collings arch tops? Holy moly!
No, I haven't. Yeah. Wow.
Those were great guitars.
Interesting. So I think we covered enough to get people's appetites. Go in, see you guys there at Elderly Instruments.
Right on.
Oh, why do you get the name Frog? I was going to ask you, why do they call you Frog?
Because when I was a little kid and we lived in Schenectady, New York, nobody could say my last name. So, late 50s, short kid with glasses, Frog.
Frog.
Oh, it's Frog. And then when we moved to Michigan, it just came along.
Hopped along with you.
Yeah, right. And then when when we started working in the 70s, when I started working in the agent's office, and they're talking about the band and we're trying to sell, and the agent says, "Oh, Steve, what are you thinking?" "Oh, no, we all call him Frog." "Okay, I guess I'll call him Frog." Okay. So and then of course after I got the band going, then it really stuck.
Right.
And I think my first wife, in '85, she said, "You've been working for people for 15 years. Quit working for people. Work for yourself." "Okay, I guess I will."
Now, the beef tones, you guys, do you only play a Stratocaster?
No, it's Tele most of the time.
Tele now?
When it's required. We do a couple of Dire Straits things and some other things. I usually it's a Tele first and second set and a Strat the third set, and a Tele the last set, unless I really got a hair, and then I might bring in a V or an SG out for the last set so that I can play a bunch of slide.
In your opinion, why is a Telecaster the greatest guitar ever?
It's the bicycle. It's the bicycle of guitars. If you've got a good one and it's set up right, you like the way the pickups sound and the tone controls working right, you can get everybody says you can't play heavy music on a Telecaster. Well, they should have been at Fulton Park in Lansing, Michigan last night, because I proved that wrong. I'm stealing that line from Bill Kirchen, because Bill Kirchen always says, "Yes, the bicycle of guitars."
Yep.
And it really is.
Yeah, it really is. And if you're in the studio and you play this, you play that, nothing seems to cut through the mix. You put a Telecaster, it cuts right. I don't know what it is. It just cuts through the mix.
You really can't follow it up. You just can't. You can't follow that sound. If you've got a decent amp and you know what you're doing, you can get a good sound out of it.
Awesome. Well, Frog, I know you're busy today. You gave me a full hour.
Well, I appreciate the call.
I appreciate all the help you guys give me with my price guide.
Well, it's fun, this is the fun part of the job,
Yeah, we talk often. Like I say, you take my daily Wayback Quiz.
Yeah, well, I get a kick out of that. I ain't get a big kick.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of my friends are sailors or musicians, so the answers are always, at the block.
Salty? Is that what we're looking for?
My wife's like, you got to take that down. Look what I'm like, yes, I know, honey. I put up, because I'm very pious. Everybody knows I'm a very religious, pious man. And I put these innocent questions up, and then I forget, most of my friends are ex-sailors or musicians.
Yeah.
Of course, the answers are all going to be really nasty. I have to run out there and cover it all up. All right, Frog, I appreciate your time. And I think people will get something out of this.
I certainly hope so.
I think we helped people today, for sure.
Yeah. Go out and play a guitar.
That's right.
That's what we always say.
Yep.
Go out and play a guitar. It's good for your health.
And if you got this much money, you go here. If you got this much money, you go there.
There you go.
If you got this much money, well, there's plenty for you. But there's more than enough in that $2,000 to $4,000 range.
Oh yeah. There's we're it's nice. We're living in an age where, really, if somebody wants and they do a little homework, they can find even under $1,000, they can find an instrument that will do them well for more than a couple of years.
Right.
Might not be a lifetime guitar, but it will do them well to learn on and to go jam with.
Yep, absolutely.
No doubt.
All righty, guys.
Thanks, and more thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
Thank you for listening to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. Please support VG for all they do for guitar players like us. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment on this podcast. I'd love to hear from you at ram@vintageguitar.com. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go.